I recently saw this post on Reddit titled, "If you're in the market for a home, please ignore your realtor and lowball whatever price you want." And you know what? Part of me honestly agrees with it a little bit. But after reading through the post and some of the comments, there was also a lot of advice that I definitely did not agree with. So I'm going to break down exactly what this post gets right, what it completely misses, and what buyers really need to know if they want a good deal without getting screwed over in the process. My name is Jessie McClellan, and I'm a realtor here in Oshawa, Ontario with the Lisa Abbott team. I make videos to help people make educated decisions when buying or selling a home. So if you'd like to stay up to date on everything happening in our real estate market, especially here in Durham region and the surrounding areas, then subscribe to the channel. Before I get into this, I just want to say that I'm not here to give anyone a hard time. I understand the frustration in the post and in the comments. It's coming from the state of the market, the lack of affordability, and honestly, there are some frustrating parts of the real estate industry. People are allowed to not like it or be frustrated. That said, let's look at what the poster said and then talk about what they got right and where I think things start to fall apart. So in the original post, the user said that they recently bought their first home, and right off the bat, they mentioned that they've never had much stake in real estate agents. They also said that listings are all online now, and it's not 1950 anymore. So let's stop right there. If you're watching this and at some point you think, well, you're a realtor, so of course you're going to disagree. Fair, but this guy literally told us his bias in the opening line, so let's just call it even and move on. They go on to say they need an agent to be taken seriously by sellers, so they found one. They found a nice home listed at $660,000. Their realtor suggested offering $635,000 to be respectful. But instead, they ignored that advice and offered $595,000. The home had been sitting for months, so they felt like they had leverage. The sellers came back at $635,000, and the poster assumed that that number was suggested by both agents as a way to settle the deal, but they didn't want it. They stood firm and came back at $610,000. In their words, there are other homes available. No home is so special that it's worth overpaying for. The seller accepted, they kept their conditions, the home sold for $50,000 under asking. And their takeaway, don't be afraid to lowball, the worst they can do is say no. Here's what I think they got right. I love that they stuck to their guns. In this market with prices trending down and inventory building up and plenty of options to choose from, buyers shouldn't feel pressure to overpay, especially if you're looking for something fairly standard like a typical subdivision home. If you're after a one-of-a-kind or rare rural listing, that's different, but for most buyers, they shouldn't feel pressure to overpay or give in to the seller's price. I also love that they kept their conditions. That's smart, and in today's market, most sellers just don't have the leverage to demand no conditions. As a buyer, you should always try to protect yourself with conditions like financing and a home inspection. And to be honest, without knowing the full story, a $595,000 offer on a $660,000 listing that's been sitting for months, I wouldn't necessarily call that a super lowball offer. It's lower than I'm sure the seller wants to take, sure, but it's certainly not a waste of time. If that's where my buyer feels comfortable starting, I have no problem writing that offer. Now here's where I don't necessarily agree. Let's start with the buyer's agent. I don't love that they told their client to offer $635,000 to be respectful. I don't know the full context. Maybe the listing agent hinted that that's where the deal could come together, or maybe there was a comparable sale that supported it, but I personally wouldn't be trying to talk my buyer up like that on the first offer, especially not from a $595,000 starting point. That's not a super insulting number, it's a starting point, and in a slow market, I would think it's reasonable. But again, we don't have all of the details, we're just going off of what this poster said. The bigger issue I have is with the lowball everything mindset. They paid $610,000 on a $660,000 listing. Great, but what did the comparable sale say that the home was worth? Just for example, if the market value was at $590,000 for that home, then they actually overpaid by $20,000. List prices are just made up advertising prices. Just because something sells under list price doesn't mean that it was a deal. It could still be overpriced. And on the flip side, if a home's listed at $599 but it's worth $675 and they're holding offers, lowballing that listing is a complete waste of time. You're not helping yourself, you're just throwing in a weak offer that might even push other buyers to come in stronger, and that would negatively impact you in the future as it would help to prop up prices in that area. So the idea that you should just lowball everything without context is also a little reckless. If the goal of this post is to help buyers get better deals, stick to their guns, and take advantage of their leverage in this market, as sellers did only a couple years ago, then that's amazing. But you should educate and empower them with good information, not blanket strategies that don't account for the reality of the market. Let's talk about this comment that you need a buyer's agent to be taken seriously by the seller. That's not why you should want a buyer's agent. Yes, you can call listing agent after listing agent until you find a house that you like. That's totally your choice. But a good buyer's agent is not only someone who you have a legal contract with, they're obligated to work in your best interest, and their job is to help you get the best deal and the right terms for you and your situation. Without a buyer's agent, no one's working for you. The listing agent has a legal obligation to get the seller the most money on the cleanest terms. That's their job. They don't owe you any legal obligation to work in your best interest at all. And yeah, I know buyers have access to listings online, but what you don't have is someone tracking price changes, following up on old listings that you've already seen, someone contacting listing agents and watching for signs that a seller is ready to negotiate at a better price. That's the part that most people miss. Several of my clients have bought homes that we saw weeks earlier, and I kept tabs on the listing and stayed in touch with listing agents until the price made sense. It's not about agents having access to a secret list of homes, it's about having someone in your corner doing the legwork for you. A listing agent isn't going to speak to someone that they don't know and who isn't a realtor and provide information about their client or their situation, but they might give some information to another realtor who calls and says that they have an interested client. Now, I'm not saying that every realtor gives great advice. I wish I could say that, but it's just not true. If you constantly feel like you have to ignore your agent's advice or that you know more about the market than your realtor, something's wrong. Either they're inexperienced, they're giving bad guidance, they're not listening, or they're just not the right fit for you. And that's okay. Not every agent is for every client, but you should feel like your agent is someone who's got your back, can clearly explain pricing and strategy, and wants to help you get the best possible outcome. For the record, the difference in commission between a $610,000 and a $635,000 sale is about $600 before splits with a team, brokerage, and taxes. And I can tell you 10 out of 10 times, I would always rather have my buyer client be happy and feeling like they got a great home for a great price than an extra $600. My client's happiness and my reputation are always going to be paramount. The last thing I want to touch on is this whole idea of being respectful or not wanting to offend the seller. When I'm representing a person or family buying a home, I'm not here to worry about the seller's feelings, but I do want to set my clients up for success. When I'm looking at putting in an offer on a home, I'm doing a full market analysis, recent sales, market shifts, condition of the property, and we take everything into consideration with your comfort level. Then we make a plan and stick to it. A $595,000 offer on a $660,000 home that's been sitting for months, that's fine. But a $500,000 offer on the same property, that's probably not getting you a response. You want to get the best price possible, but you also need to be smart about it. If you're serious about buying and want to make lower offers, your agent needs to be really good at pulling comps. Homes with similar square footage, finishes, layout, property taxes, all of it matters. From there, you can build a case for your offer. Maybe market prices have dropped 2% since the last sale. Maybe the finishes aren't as good. That's how you negotiate from a position of strength, not by throwing out random numbers. If we can make a case for our offer price that gives me or your agent a chance to go in and explain how we came to our price and show that we are serious, but this is where we believe that the fair market value should be. Also, your agent should be digging into the seller's situation. Do they need a quick closing because they're carrying 2 mortgages, or they just bought a property and they need to sell this one? That kind of info can help sweeten your offer by offering a faster closing to accommodate the seller. There are plenty of ways to improve your offer that don't require you to just increase your offer price. At the end of the day, communication matters and is very important in this industry. I've had listing agents encourage their seller clients to work with my client's offer, even though it was a little bit lower, because they were able to know a little bit more about my client and I was there to answer their questions and put their mind at ease. And also they knew that if there was an issue that came up in the process, there would be another professional agent on the other side that would be working hard to remedy it. Anytime we're submitting a low offer, I explain how we came to our price, so even if it came back as a shock to the seller, we could at least back it up with facts and real data. I'm not telling you to blindly trust every realtor, but you also don't have to treat them all like the enemy. Find someone who communicates clearly, is transparent, knows the market, and can explain everything from comparable sales to strategy in a way that actually makes sense, and who never pushes you to do anything that you're not comfortable with. If your agent can't explain your choices and the likely outcomes or why they're recommending something, then they're not the right fit. It's one of the largest investments that you'll ever make, and you deserve to have a competent professional agent that you trust help guide you through it. That's all for this one. I know it's a little bit different than our normal content, but if you like this video and want to see more like it, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching until the end. Hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.